Hello and welcome to Cinema Therapy Reviews. My name's Alan Seawright. I'm a professional filmmaker who needs therapy.
And I'm Jonathan Decker, licensed therapist who loves movies, and today we are talking about Mufasa. It's not live action, stop calling it that.
It's animation with a glossier coat of paint.
Prequel movie telling the story of Mufasa. All right.
Yep, that's who it's telling the story of.
It's that simple, I think.
What did you think of this film, Alan?
I thought that it was really inconsistent.
Okay, I think I felt something similar.
High points first. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote songs for this movie. Ergo, every time a song started, within 3 seconds I was like, I think I kind of like this. This is pretty good. And within 10 seconds I was like, more of this, please. And there wasn't enough of it. There were not enough songs.
I actually had the opposite experience. You're usually the cynical one. This was the first Lin-Manuel Miranda anything where I was like, like it was fine.
Really?
Really, it was fun. I just wish he had done Moana 2 instead of this.
Listen, I agree. There was one song that was, you know, a typical Lin-Manuel, like, phenomenal song. And the rest of them felt like sort of Lin-Manuel low points, which is to say, merely excellent.
Right, and I think because I knew it was Lin-Manuel Miranda, I expected Moana, Hamilton, you know, Encanto, like that level. And instead it's Lin-Manuel Miranda. I hate to say this, because I don't know. I can't speak to his intentions. I don't know him. But it's like, you know what? Disney's giving me money. Not super passionate about it, but I am super talented.
It felt like a world-class genius collecting a paycheck, which is still pretty damn good.
Yeah,
better than any song in Moana 2.
Yeah, that's valid.
So every good movie has at least 3 great scenes and no bad ones.
Okay.
That's what Howard Hawks defined as, okay, this is good. This movie had, honestly, 4 great scenes, but it also had about 20 bad ones.
Yeah.
That's where I say it's really inconsistent, because there are a lot of like bad movies that don't have any terrible scenes, there are just no great ones, right? And so you get out of it and you're like, This movie, the highs were quite high, honestly, but then there were a lot of lows that just kind of, what are we doing here? And it wasn't just all the Timon and Pumbaa stuff, which literally none of that had to happen. It was all terrible. There were like 1 or 2 Timon and Pumbaa jokes that I thought were funny. The rest of them were like the worst fourth wall breaking I've ever seen.
I couldn't help but think as I was watching this movie about the first 15 minutes of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which in 1989 was a super novel idea to be like, here's someone you know and love. Here's how he got his hat. Here's how he got his whip. Here's how he got his scar. Here's why he's afraid of snakes. All of that at the time felt very fresh, but now that's an entire genre of movies, which almost every time just feels like a corporate like cash out. And that's how I felt during much of the runtime of this film, except for there were a couple of times where I'm like, damn it, this is actually moving.
Exactly. Like, I'm so bored and annoyed and I kind of don't care about these characters, and wait, why am I crying now?
These movies have a set of rules. You have to have a childhood trauma involving a lion, and you have to have a triumphant ending. And both of those got to me. Almost none of the comedic moments worked, but quite a few of the dramatic ones did.
I would say there were a couple of comedic moments with Taka, who, spoiler alert, becomes Scar. I don't know why we're holding off on this until the very end of the movie.
Timon and Pumbaa say like a third of the way into the movie, they're like, ooh, I think I know who Taka is. It's pretty obvious. We're all like, yes, it is.
I understand that you're making this movie for 3-year-olds, but come on. Even 3-year-olds get it.
Every Rafiki joke worked for me.
Every
Rafiki's
Rafiki joke was great, and there were a couple of character-based Taka/Scar jokes that I thought were pretty funny.
Now, this is a weird thing to say, though, because most movies that are just okay to mediocre, it's kind of a, well, I'll just watch it at home. I had that experience with Red 1 recently, where it was free on my Amazon Prime, and I'm like, that was perfectly enjoyable if I didn't have to pay $70 for my whole family. You know, when I'm just like turning it on.
There's a price that is like, it's worth it. And it's like, I'm already paying for Amazon Prime.
But this is the odd film where it's a mediocre movie that I would definitely recommend if you're going to see it in the theater, because the visuals and the sound are the reason to see the movie. I saw this in Dolby and was completely blown away just by what I was taking in, especially anytime there was like a large animal stampede. The whole theater just and loved it.
The other thing is the way the movie is mixed. Obviously you feel, you know, stampede, but every time one of the lions roars, you feel it in your chest, which is, you know, awesome. especially because there are some triumphal roars where you're like, I'm roaring too, kinda. It's like I'm part of the movie. The way they managed to make every single animal realistic and feel like a real animal while also being able to emote is crazy. The artistry on display from all of the animators and artists who did this, absolutely bananas. And that goes from the animators, you know, pulling faces around to make lions smile and laugh at each other, to all of the technical crew making the muscles ripple and the shaders to make the fur look 100% real and the water look 100% real. Like, this is a shockingly realistic looking movie. I was like trying to pick scenes where I could like, there's a scene, that's broken. I couldn't find anything the entire runtime. I mean, this was Avatar level. Like, it was insane.
And they fixed the problem from the first digital Lion King. In the first one, the problem was they wanted to make it realistic looking, but real animals don't emote in their faces with human emotions. They just kind of had regular lion faces. And so they took it to heart because they're animated in an anthropomorphized fashion here.
They're still plausible. Like, it's really, really incredible work from all of the artists.
So Alan, who's this movie for?
To be honest with you, I don't know. Disney executives that want to make $1 billion?
Now that's capitalism.
The problem is, and this is a problem with many of the live action reboots, you know, the first one made $1 billion or whatever. I don't know that there's much of a market for this. I legitimately don't know who this is for. The Timon and Pumbaa jokes are for 3-year-olds, but there were 3-year-olds in my theater and they weren't laughing.
I mean, I would say families and anyone who's like a real connoisseur of visual effects and sound design who just wants to have an amazing experience. It's kind of like sitting through your children's school play where you're bored and annoyed most of the time and then suddenly you start crying. You know, like...
Okay, here's who it's really for. The truly devoted Lion King fan.
Yeah.
If you just cannot get enough Lion King, this is some more of it.
Right.
All right, so we've addressed who it's for. For everyone who goes to see it, how can it help them?
Well, I've prepared some questions, as I often do, for you to take to the theater.
Okay.
Number 1, how can entitlement spoil your relationships? Number 2, how can you see what others value in order to unite them? And number 3, how can we all help Disney value original ideas? I'm not done. Instead of reanimating the corpses of the past. Let's all get a little think tank together here in the comments. All right, so Alan, it's time to give this film a rating. What would you give Mufasa: The Lion King?
This movie was so uneven that it's like, on a pure like storytelling standpoint, honestly, it's a 3, maybe a 2. But the high points of the movie for me were easy 8s. So I'm kind of in the 4 to 5 range, and just because it's getting, for me, a Lin-Manuel bump, I'm gonna rate it a 5.
All right.
It's a fine time at the theater, and especially if you go to the theater, absolutely incredible sound and beautiful visuals.
My thoughts were very similar to yours. I'm gonna give it a 6, primarily for the sheer artistry of it. Like, it was just, my jaw was on the floor.
Let us know in the comments below what we got right, what we got wrong, if you saw it in the theater, and if it blew your mind as well. Also, as always, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and stick around, because we're gonna talk about some spoilery crap.
Spoiler alert!
Okay, there's a couple of things. We hold off on naming Scar until literally the last 40 seconds of the movie? Dumb. We know it's gonna come. You don't have to do that. The biggest spoiler problem for me is, like, they make it to this mythical land, and Mufasa's like, hey, let's unite all the herds and everyone to fight against these lions. And then it just sort of happens. Mufasa is, and I hate using this term because it gets way overused, Mufasa is a Mary Sue. He never struggles at anything.
Not to nitpick, but this drove me crazy, is they talked so many times about how the lions were starving to death and they had to eat soon and they had to hunt soon, and then they would get distracted or go on side adventures and they never eat. When they finally unite like Pride Rock, I'm like, this is gonna be awkward in about 3 minutes when Mufasa says, thank you all for loving me and accepting me. I need to kill one of you now or I'm gonna die.
Every herd member, where's your sickest member? Because we're gonna eat them.
So until next time, folks,
watch movies
at the theater.